Alright guys, welcome back to VALORANT News with Masters Madrid just around the corner. The groups for all of the regular season matches around the world have been revealed over the last few days. We saw EMEA a few days ago, now we have the Pacific and the Americas as well. Sentinels and NRG finding themselves in the same group at the end of the season. 3 of those 5 teams in the group will qualify. Which teams is it going to be? When do they play each other as well based on the format for the season? Very much intrigued to your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always, I greatly appreciate it. Of course, we talked about the game changer stuff in the North American side the other day, with SR taking the victory, and as you might expect, GG goes and dominated it in the EMEA as well. So it really is just so predictable at this point what's going to happen in the relative game changers regions. Of course, new team now though with Vanya and Rex and all this other stuff that they brought in, and Amy as well during the off season, and it was a 13-2 breeze, a 13-11 split, and a 13-4 bind. So you know, congratulations, but it's difficult to maintain the hype to watch some of these series when the result is effectively a foregone conclusion, right? Now we did see, however, on the other side of G2, their main team is actually making a change. James of F reports this as well, that Ness is currently absent from the team. To me, I'm not really sure this is going to be a good idea. I'm not sure what they're cooking over there. We saw yesterday that, of course, Leaf has come in, Tex went, now Ness is potentially going to go as well. There's obviously some options. Pankara, we know that he has been linked to various teams over the last few weeks. The current understanding is that he is very much biding his time. Like, if I'm Pankara, I'm not joining any team before Masters Madrid ends unless Lev give me the offer. Like, if Lev come in and say, look, do you want to join? I'm probably going to say yes. Otherwise, he might be waiting to see how Loud get on, because if Loud underperform big time at Masters Madrid, maybe they give him an offer. But any other team but Lev and Loud, I'm waiting if I'm Pankara. I'm not joining Cloud9, I'm not joining G2, I'm not joining Furia. I'm giving it some time. But the good thing for Pankara is that he's free to do effectively what he wants, right? Because Sentinels have allowed him to explore options with no buyout. So good stuff for them. I don't think Pankara's going to G2, and also, you know, we don't want Pankara to be stuck back on the Sentinel role as well like he was last year, so hopefully they can find ways to avoid that wherever he goes next. We've also got to talk about the matchups in the relative regions. So this is the VCT Pacific. These are their Stage 1 matchups, Week 1. So April the 6th it all kicks off, of course, over there. So we've got Masters Madrid. Just after that, the league gets underway. Now, initially, they just confirms who the matchups are, and we kind of had to piece together ourselves what the groups are going to be as a result. But these are the groups. So, look, 11 teams is just such an unfortunate number of teams to have to deal with. I kind of wish that it went from 10 to 12, and then maybe from 12 to 14 or something. 16 is a great number. I don't think we're ever going to get to 16, just because, well, the current understanding is that the partnership format will cap out at 14 teams, which is not the worst number, but 16 is actually so good because, you know, it's a multiple of 2. The way that it works, it just makes a lot of sense. But theoretically, 16 teams in 4 regions around the world is quite a lot of teams, and maybe, right, don't want to go quite that far. But for now, we're going to have 11 teams, which means 1 group of 5, 1 group of 6. Also worthy of note, for the playoffs at the end of the season, 6 teams qualify for the playoffs out of the 11, and 3 from Group A, 3 from Group B, or Group Omega, effectively. So, actually, if you're in Group A, Group Alpha, you get quite an advantage, because there's only 5 teams, and 3 of them qualify. So you've only got to be top 60%, whereas in Group Omega, you've got to be top 50%. You've got to beat 3 teams, whereas in Alpha, you've only got to beat 2 teams to make the playoffs, which is an advantage, for sure, for the teams in Alpha. Maybe to compensate for that, the groups tend to be a bit more stacked in Alpha, I think. That is at least how it is in EMEA. That's kind of how it appears to me as well here in the Pacific as well. I'm not sure that necessarily applies to the Americas that we'll discuss in a second. But to be fair, that league is so stacked that it's kind of tough to say. So this is how it goes anyway. We've got Global Esports in Group A. Not been great so far, made some changes. But everybody else, I mean, Team Secret, they showed a lot of promise. T1 have looked really good. And then Gen.G, the champions. So that is actually a really interesting group, I think. Like right now, you'd say Gen.G, T1 and Team Secret should be the favourites to make it through. But who knows what's going to happen over the course of the season. And of course, Bleed Esports, right? They're making those changes. Crazy Guy's gone. And, you know, Egoist is gone. And they've brought in, of course, Zest as well. And Retler, right, from back in the day. So we'll see if they get on any well, but we're going to see them in action soon. Of course, that's Ye's team, right? Very excitingly. So, and then Group Omega, Paper X, DRX are right in here. Then Talent showed some promise. Detonation, probably not going to be great either. RRQ, though, have been somewhat better than expected. And then Zeta. So I think both groups are interesting. difficult for Bleed, I think, in Group A, but it's worth just mentioning here what the format is, because every team will play every other team over the course of the season. The first stage is cross-group. So the very first split, effectively, will be Gen.G playing all of these 6 teams, Global Esports playing all of these 6 teams, and then working vice versa as well. So in the first split, they play the other group. In the next split, they then play their own group before the playoffs are determined for Masters Shanghai, all this type of stuff. By the way, VCT Pacific is going to move to this COEX Artem Arena in the Gangnam district. So, you know, there's when I think Gangnam, I think of something else entirely from back in 2012, whatever that year was. But yeah, in Seoul for stage 1 and 2. So that's going to be the arena. I think they're going to announce the tickets as soon as they possibly can as well. As actually Jake says here, they're trying to maximize accessibility. So really cool stuff as well. They've got their own kind of arena going on for stage 1 and stage 2. And hopefully it'll be far less of a disaster than the kickoff was. Just before we get to the other regions, got to mention updates here on Cloud9, because Alejandro is now saying, sources are saying, that this is a done deal. Moose and Rooney are in, Jake and Whippy are gone. Cloud9 is also exploring additional coaching options for the assistant coach position, because yeah, you've got to say their decision-making, their coaching has maybe been somewhat questionable. Maybe they want to put some pressure as well on the in-game leader in Vanity to see if this is going to improve things. Of course, Rooney was there and in-game leading last year. I think he was a really solid player. And I don't know, I don't mind the pickups. I just think I'm looking at it and thinking, like, is this really going to move the needle enough to make them a contender all of a sudden? I'm not so convinced personally. FNS, of course, here in the replies as well. But we've got to discuss what's happening in the Americas, because Zelsis is doing my job for me here by explaining how the groups work. Starting on the 6th of April, each team will play all the teams in the other group. Starting June the 22nd, each team will play all the teams in their own group. So these are the groups here in the Americas. I'll just show the EMEA ones, for example, as well here, just to kind of show you how this was structured. KC, Fnatic, Vitality, Liquid, BBL all in Group A. That's pretty stacked. Heretics, Na'Vi, Movistar, Fit Esports, Gentlemates, Giant X, that is less stacked. So that is kind of my feeling, that generally speaking, Group A tends to be a bit stronger than Group B. But I'm not sure that's really the case here in the Americas. And therefore, qualifying for the championship, for the playoffs at the end of the season, is possibly easier for the Group A teams than it is for the Group Omega teams. So this is how it goes. Sentinels, the new Cloud9 team, of course, with their new roster. G2, their new G2 roster, it seems. Crew Esports, of course, who have their moments, but kind of few and far between, and then NRG. So to be fair, I look at both groups and I say, damn, like there actually is some pretty damn decent teams in both of these groups. But I think that's just natural with the Americas right now. So Group Omega is Lev and Loud, both in this group, with 100T as well. So once again, there they are in a very similar, you know, the group of death, of course, that 100T had with Sen, Loud, and Lev for the kickoff. 100T are in with 2 of those teams again. Then MIBR, then Furia, then EG. So again, it's like Group A is strong, but Group Omega, I mean, you've got Lev and Loud. 100T I actually think are pretty good, to be fair. EG, they weren't far off, to be honest, making it through to Masters Madrid. MIBR got a good victory against G2, let's not forget. And okay, Fury are pretty shocking right now, but they can turn it around with a couple of changes over the season. So it's pretty stacked, to be honest. But I guess the point is really that over the course of the season, every team plays every other team. So maybe the strength of your own group doesn't massively matter in the overall picture, although it does matter for the immediate term, right? Because let's say you're in Group Alpha, you play the Omega teams now, because this upcoming Stage 1, you play cross-group, then you play inter-group in the second side, or intra-group, or whatever it should technically be. If you play those other teams while they are potentially weaker before they've made changes or whatever, then you can capitalize. But over the course of the season, everybody plays everybody else, which is actually, I guess, why it's quite a nice advantage to be in Group A in any of these groups, because, you know, you've just got to be better record than 2 teams rather than better record than 3 teams. So that's just unfortunately the way that it is with an 11-team league. But as Sensei, no, you will not see us in April, because they will not play Sen and NRG until June. What we will have, however, is Sen 100T. Like, that game will be coming up very shortly indeed. It's going to cribble it in a way that we're not going to get Sen NRG until at least June. I mean, come on, they just played recently. There should be more matches played, no doubt in my mind, during these regular season stages, but it is what it is. So 100T, they're going to play Sen are going to play Lev, Sen are going to play Loud, NRG are going to play Loud. Whatever the case is, there's going to be all these banger games. I'm sure they're going to start off the season with them very nicely indeed, and we shall see how that trends over time. But yes, it's cross-group first, then it's inter-group, and we'll see at the end of the season who gets to the playoffs, therefore who gets to Masters Shanghai, and therefore who gets some good points going into the World Championship course at the end of the season, which is going to be in Seoul, I'm pretty sure, based on what we are aware of. Just to mention as well, going into Masters Madrid, these are the only 4 players that have the opportunity to become a 2-time international champion. Of course, Sassy, Salak and Les, formerly of the Loud Guys, but also TenZ, right? Because that Sentinels result a couple of years ago, the teams now are very different to how they were back then. There's plenty of players still around that have the chance to win more international events, but many of them are not at this tournament. Only 4 of them are. These are the 4 that get the opportunity to do so. This is pretty wild as well. So heading into VCT Madrid, the average entry rate of a controller player is 10%, which is probably what you might expect. This means they take their first fight in a round for their team 10% of the time. TenZ, however, on the Omen, largely is at 22%. So this is entirely different to what anybody else in the league is really doing at the moment. People might say, oh, this is bad, like it's not really suited for it, but I think TenZ's opening duel win percentage is still like 60-odd%. So he's getting way more entries than you might expect for what he's doing. Completely different way to approach the game in many respects, and he's still making it work very impressively. So I'm sure other teams are looking, they're trying to figure things out, they're trying to change things around, but obviously that is very much so easier said than done. So very much intrigued to your thoughts on all this stuff in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, take care, and I'll see you next time.